Welcome to Jazzy Mag. We have artist Carl Paolino on. It's really good to see you here. It was great to connect with you at Brooklyn. How you feeling today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We only got to talk a little bit. It's really funny for anyone who was not there. It was so loud. You know, you kept like asking me questions, and I'm like, "Yeah, I can't even hear my own answers." So I don't know if I'm helping. That's why I figured it's better to do it this way.
I'd have to agree. And yeah, that was one of the loudest showroom floors I've ever been on. The high ceilings just create an echo all the way up. That was insane.
I love it. I'd love to do it again. I don't know if you remember where I was sitting. We were facing, let's see, we were facing west, and at the top of the what used to be this armory, there were windows. And as the sun was setting, the temperature, the heat that was on our side of the room there was just like, I was just like, oh my God, I'm dying here. Well, those last 2 hours were just grueling. So I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do an interview right now. I'm just between the heat and the echo and the body slams it was just like, it was brutal. Did you watch any of that?
Oh my God, of course. I saw, wait, by body slams, are you talking about the wrestling?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I filmed a couple of the matches. It was oh my, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan, and actually, one of the questions I wanted to ask you. So, for those unfamiliar, Carl worked on the TV show Celebrity Deathmatch, the MTV show, which itself was inspired quite a bit by the time professional wrestling was hot. First question, I want to know what was exactly your involvement in the production? You created the puppets, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So not what I would call a difficult part of the production, but definitely a very complicated part of the production. Um, I basically dealt with the producer of the show, or one of the producers of the show, and the idea that he threw at me was, if we can't make as many puppets as we need and as quickly as we need, we can't do the show. So the idea was to come up with a way of creating characters that kind of look like what they were calling claymation at the time. I think they still use the expression. It's very popular, maybe it's old school because, we think clay is clay. Now, via computer, they can make characters look like they have that clay texture and very rubbery and stretchy, and you can see fingerprints, and it's not, it's computer generated. But back then, um, it was tougher. You had to make things made of clay. And the problem with clay is a character that would be, let me just pull up a character here. So I did another series after Celebrity Deathmatch, and that's what this character's from. And obviously is a little bit of Spider-Man inspired, but the writers, I was dealing with a group of writers in LA, and they came up with, what if Woody Allen was Spider-Man? So he's got his sneakers and he's got his underwear on the outside because they think that's what Woody Allen would do. And maybe he would. I don't know. He's got a wire in the back there. That's how we made him jump around, made him fly. It's all very flexible. So that was a character we did there. Spider Woody, we were calling him. And he wears glasses on the outside because, you know, how else would you know the trademark Woody Allen, right? So it became a very complicated task. They sent me, if I remember correctly, they sent me over these large puppets. They were about 12 inches, 13 inches, and they were just solid clay. They had some wire in them, and they were just like, you put them on the table, it was like, boom. Like, it's like, how is anybody going to animate these? So our solution, I'll bring this little guy in again. Our solution was to sculpt them in clay, then make a mold and cast them in foam rubber latex. And you can see he's a little squishy. It
Ah,
looks solid, right? But he's not. His head is solid. It's a hard plastic. It's what we were making the heads out of, a urethane. So I applied some of the older techniques of special effects, prop making, miniatures, things like that, to these characters. So the bodies are foam, and you can see they're squishy. And I'm
Wow.
kind of surprised. These puppets are almost as old as Celebrity Deathmatch. And this was for another TV series I produced. And the foam rubber, it's got some organic material in it, so they don't last forever. And I'm always afraid to like touch it and it'll just like come apart. So that was basically what we did. We came up with a methodology by which we can create the characters from start to finish, which would mean we would get designs from MTV, and we would sculpt them, make the armatures, make the molds, cast the puppets in foam rubber latex, and then paint them and detail them, and we'd ship them back over there. They're only a few blocks away. I have a studio on 47th Street between 9th and 10th Avenue at the time,
Oh,
back when Hell's Kitchen was Hell's Kitchen. And so we were shipping stuff back and forth to the Paramount building, or one of their buildings. Where is it? It's about 55th Street, maybe between 54th and 55th. I
mm,
think it's across from the Winter Garden Theater, where like Cats played for like 20 years, if you remember the show. And
yes.
um, did you ever see the show?
Never saw Cats. No. Never quite got my interest, but respect to the legendary production that ran for as long as it did.
It really did. It ran for so long. Um, I saw it back in the day, so 20 something years ago, maybe 25.
Wow.
No, I'm thinking, wow, it was a long time ago. The thing that was more interesting is you go into the lobby, because this used to be a movie theater. And I guess before it, it used to be vaudeville. So this theater's been there for, I don't know, 100 years, maybe more. And there's a plaque on the wall of Mickey Mouse. And one of the early Mickey Mouses was Steamboat. Was it Steamboat Bill?
Steamboat Willie.
Yeah, Steamboat Willie. It played there for the very first time. So it got a plaque on the wall in it had to be like 1928 or something. So I guess it's coming up on the centennial,
It
maybe.
is. Yeah, I believe 1928. I believe that is Steamboat Willie.
And that was the first place it played in New York, or so I'm told via history books written about animation, which I've always felt are a little sketchy because, nobody was really keeping track back then. The I had a teacher in School of Visual Arts when I went there a million years ago, and Howard Beckerman was his name, and he was just an amazing animator and film historian. He's written numerous books on animation, and he swears that that's where it happened. That was the first Steamboat Willie. What was Steamboat Bill? Oh, Steamboat Bill was the silent comedian,
Oh.
Buster Keaton.
Oh, really? Didn't know
That
that
was
was
that was his movie. Did you ever see that?
I did not know. I never got too familiar with Buster Keaton stuff. But wow, that's fascinating that Steamboat Willie played. Where was that? 50?
I'm going to say between 54th and 55th. It was the Winter Garden. It's probably still the Winter Garden Theater. And there's a
Gotcha.
plaque on the wall in the lobby. It's a big trip to go in and see it, but I've done it. I just like go into just, wow, that's great. That's history. It's film history, animation history. So circling back. So we created a production line because every 2 weeks we would get a new order for like 8 or 10 brand new characters. And sometimes I remember once there was oh, who was it now? Was it In Sync? Was fighting, I'm gonna say Backstreet Boys.
I believe
So
that was, yeah.
that's a lot of characters. And what we did, we used to make two of each because there's a wire inside the puppet, and animators have to like grab the puppet and they got to manipulate it, take a frame of film, well, actual digital video, but we still use the word film. And after so much bending, the wires would break. So, suddenly an arm didn't do what you wanted it to do. So they would have to swap out the puppet. So sometimes we'd make 2 or 3 copies of the same character, and it was crazy. It was a crazy time. But we'd have like a couple of days off, and what started out as like 2 or 3 people in my studio, by the time we got done with the third season, we were, I don't know, 15 to 20 people. It was just, production line. we had to work faster. We had to, improve the quality. So that was my involvement with Celebrity Deathmatch.
Wow. And how long on average would any given puppet take to make? Just one with from start to finish, clay, wire, and all.
That would be a couple of days turnaround, but what we would do is we had a turnaround of about 8 or 10 puppets at a time
Hmm.
because it just wasn't worth it, to make one puppet. Although periodically they would send us a rush job and say, we need one more Sylvester Stallone. And we had all the molds, so we'd have to like overnight. And it was worth it because it was a great project. It was unique to its time. Um, people keep asking me, like, is it coming back? I don't know. Producers haven't
Right.
contacted me. I don't know if they ever will. Um, I don't know if I'd even want to work on it again. It's like,
Oh, okay.
but what would you do? Who would you have? You know,
Right.
I think in today's climate, people would be like, oh, Kanye West versus Taylor Swift. That would be funny, right?
Right. Yeah.
Whose lawyer would come after you first?
Good point. Yeah, we live in a pretty litigious age, and I was gonna ask you about like there had been a couple times a revival had been floated around, even including Ice Cube being the executive
Yeah.
producer. Um, but okay, so that did happen. That was true.
Yeah, I don't know if it was, I don't know much about it because I'm not part of that inner circle. I was not a producer on the show. When we first spoke about it, I'm like, I really should get a producer credit. I mean, I'm helping your whole production line here, and I never got a definitive answer. So as we finished the first episode, they said, "Well, give us a list of, whoever worked on the show." And at the time, it was about 4 or 5 of us, and I put myself down as supervising production of whatever, and then everybody else's name, and then when the credits came out, it just had our names in alphabetical order, and it said puppets. I'm like, oh, damn you, I did more than
Oh,
that. So, but it is the nature of the business. Um, if you've ever been involved with producing a TV series, especially on a larger level, MTV was the biggest thing of its time at that point. Now, I teach college and I talk to students constantly about things I've done, things I'm working on, things that are in our pop culture sphere right now, and there's very few of them who go, "Oh, I heard a Celebrity Death Match." I mean, it's just like nobody, like, they don't know what it is. It's the weirdest thing. And it's like, dude, this was big. They used to play music videos, you know,
right.
and productions were big on music videos. They used to get a $500,000 budget to do a 3-minute piece, $1 million budget if it was somebody really big. Can't even think of who would have been really big at the time. Slips my mind. But those are the kind of things we did at the time. And my guess is the other problem is we live in a very, again, pop culture driven, so therefore commercially driven um, industry.
Mhm.
So my question for you would be, how would you market that? How do
Ah,
you take the image and not pay residuals to Taylor Swift if you used her? How do you do this? I don't think you can. Like, this is protected as like a spoof because you're doing a spoof of a real life person. Uh,
right.
and since they're in the media, like Saturday Night Live does stuff like this all the time. They
Pretty
imitate people,
clause.
they imitate politicians, right? But you never see a toy on the shelf. Saturday Night Live presents, Donald Trump puppet. It's not
Right.
going to see it. So I
Hmm.
think there's a fine line between a spoof law that protects you and you're actually making money on that person, that personality. And I mean, that's my guess, but I have no data to support it.
I understand. That is an interesting point to make because if you were to sell, and I would imagine those toys especially at the time, would have been quite popular. An action figure mold of each of the celebrities that are
Oh, yeah.
featured on the show. I mean,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want a piece, but you would have to cut that pie a lot of different ways. I
Yeah. Yeah.
understand. Um,
And I
and
think a network wouldn't want to share that with anybody, you know.
no, I mean,
But
yeah.
your interpretation is correct. I think, the same way during let me think, it was in the 90s, the early 2000s. I think even today, the 6-inch action figure that you get on the card, I
Mhm.
think they're called action figures, right?
Yeah,
They're still collected.
yeah,
They're collected by children, they're collected by adults. And sure, who wouldn't want the Leo DiCaprio version from Celebrity Deathmatch? I mean, you could even like only make 500 or 1,000 of them, make it a collector's item, but why wouldn't Leo go, hey, where's my lawyer's phone number? I want a piece of that. And then,
right.
once you start chopping it up, it's like, it's not going to happen. It's a fun idea, but I don't see it happening.
The only show I believe that's done releases of celebrity versions of their characters is The Simpsons, and that was only 20 years into their run. And that I don't know how widely it was done, but I understand. And those people are probably getting a cut of that Simpsons check, I'd imagine.
If the voice is not used because it's a doll, it's an
Ah,
image, that would be owned by the network. I don't know for sure, but that's my guess. Anytime you use their
okay.
voice, that's a different story. And those guys, they have done really well. They still see residual checks, from a show that's been on for 32 years, 34 years. It's something like that.
Oh, Simpsons since '89, so
Oh,
35.
wow. Crazy. Crazy.
One
Yeah.
more question about Celebrity Deathmatch, or a few. I'll keep it brief because I do want to get to Spontania, ask you about that, and also about Mark Hamill. But yeah, I got it right here as well.
Oh,
Thank you so
cool.
much for the copy, by the
Oh,
way.
you're welcome.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for signing. Yeah, appreciate that.
Well, we need to know what we're talking about, right? And, all
Truly.
publicity is good, as they say.
No press is bad press. You're absolutely right. But now with Celebrity Deathmatch, and for those curious, this is the PC computer game from the year.
I'm thinking early
Uh,
2000s.
yeah, looks like 2000. Um, so first, did you ever have any interactions with Stone Cold Steve Austin? I know you did his mold, his
Yeah.
clay mold. And if so, what were those interactions like? What was it like to meet the man?
Okay. Uh, to my knowledge, if I remember correctly, the only four actors that actually did their own voices were Stone Cold, Mills Lane, and Ozzy did
Oh,
his voice, and Manson.
Maryland, right, right, right.
Right.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, I never met any of them. In fact, I've never met any of the actors on the entire series except one. I
That.
did meet Leo DiCaprio.
Oh yeah.
And it was really funny because some friends of mine said, we got a meeting with him. Would you like to be there to meet him? And we heard he's a fan of Celebrity Deathmatch. I said, sure. Are you kidding? And he said, one problem. We need you to like bring the puppet. And I said, well, I haven't got the puppet. It's owned by Paramount and they have everything. I turned everything over. And he said, well, do you have the design? I said, well, yeah, they gave me the design. They said, can you make a puppet? I said, the meeting's tomorrow. I can't make a whole puppet. I can make his head based on the design. And I said, oh, do that. So I made a little DiCaprio head based on the character in the show. And we put it on a little pedestal. And when I met him, I like, you don't know what reaction he's going to have, right? And I was like, oh, this is the guy that made your puppet. And I had it with me and I went, here. And he just loved it. He just had such a good time. It's like, oh my God, Jack Nicholson, he killed me, He got a kick out of it in the right way. And so he was the only actor I actually met that we made a version of. And, a lot of times I believe the voices were done by whoever was working there. Like anybody can do this character or that character. And they had a lot of interns working them from a bunch of different colleges, art colleges, and everybody was just doing their own voices. So Marilyn Manson, I think the idea was they tied it into a music video because I remember making more than one Manson puppet, and they were like the first one was very crude, and then it's like they got a thing going with Manson, so we made another puppet which was taller and more colorful and more detailed, and then I think we did a third one and maybe a fourth one. So one of them actually ended up in his music video, and I don't even know if I've even seen it, to be perfectly honest. After a while, you work on so many projects, you're like, I may have seen it, I don't remember. I've worked on probably close to 1,000 TV commercials, and if you throw in, everything, the music videos, oh boy, the music videos, the Broadway shows, live performances. After a while, it's like it all mushes together. Periodically, I'll watch something on TV and I'll go, oh, I made that, or I'll see someone that I worked with back in the day. So it's kind of fun. It makes it sound like I've got Alzheimer's, but I'm pretty sharp. But after a while, it's just so much. There's so much stuff. The fun part is I do a convention and I get fans coming up all the time and they're like, do you remember the show where this happened? And I'm like, I remember making that puppet. They go, do you know who won? And I'll say, I don't remember. And then they'll tell me the whole story. Well, this happened and that happened. And I'm like, all right, I got it. After a while, it's a little too much. But so it's fun. It's all fun. That's why I do it. That's why it's enjoyable.
That's good. It's good to have passion in what you do. And of the celebrities you molded, who would you say is your favorite? Or if you don't have one off the top of your head, who are some?
Well, what was the last part of that?
Or if you don't have one off the top of your head, who are just some of them?
Oh, okay. There were several. Let me see. Leo was great. It was great making a Leo character. Here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize some people's faces are very hard to duplicate in a small version. I mean, now it's a lot easier because we could digitally do it and we can create the character on the computer and then 3D print it, and it's pretty much right on. But when you're doing a caricature and you're shrinking it down to that size, a lot of people's faces, especially younger women who are in their 20s, they just have very simple little noses. It's kind of a Hollywood version. Almost everybody looks alike after a while.
Mm.
Their faces started to look a lot alike. So the hairstyle was different. Clothing they wore was different. But after a while, they started to all look the same. So it was very hard to capture that character. But Ozzy Osbourne was great. One of my favorites. We did about 3 of him, actually, if I'm remembering correctly. We did a Three Stooges, and I don't even remember if they shot that. I remember one show we did that they never shot, to my knowledge, was Star Trek: The Next Generation was on TV at the time. That was also a Paramount product. And we did a bunch of characters like Jean-Luc Picard and Deanna Troi. I think we did a Data character. We got about halfway through with that when we got a cease and desist on that project. They were like, just stop it. Don't worry, we'll pay you for what you did, but we're not doing a Star Trek episode. And I was like, oh, why would you not want to do a Star Trek episode? This is a great idea, right?
Yeah.
And it appeared that some of the people in the Star Trek TV series, which was very popular, had a problem with it. So there's that legal issue, coming at you again. And they worked for Paramount at the time. But let's face it, if you're a large corporation, do you want to make the people working for you unhappy, especially when they're on a TV series that's very popular. No, you don't want to ruffle feathers. There's no reason for it. So that never got made to my knowledge. I mean, they might have shot something and now it's on somebody's hard drive somewhere. Maybe the producers, I don't know, maybe the directors, I have no idea. But once we made those puppets and we sent them off, we were like, oh man, those are the ones we wish you know, I kept the molds. No, I had to turn over everything. So that was my contract. I stuck to it. I gave them everything they wanted, and that was that.
That's a shame. I'm a big fan of Trek. I'm more of an original series fan, but
Oh yeah.
I do have a big appreciation for Next Generation. I think you just revealed that there is lost media of Celebrity Deathmatch. Now, have you heard this concept of lost media? You know, just like pieces of a show or a movie or lost film, things of that nature.
Yeah, I never heard it called lost media, but yeah, absolutely. You know, I was looking at something the other day. It was clips of Humphrey Bogart screwing up his lines from a film that's from the 30s. So that stuff's already 90 years old. And it was like, oh, I've never seen this. But, you know, periodically, this stuff is in the vaults, you know, and somebody goes through it. It's like, hey, let's digitize it. Let's drop it on YouTube or something. And it's like, it can only bring, you know, more popularity to something. I mean, Humphrey Bogart was just absolutely amazing. And again, I work a lot of this kind of material into my college classes when we just have regular conversations about pop culture. And it's very disheartening when no one in the room, students between 18 and 21, have any idea who Humphrey Bogart is.
He's one of the classic Hollywood actors of what's called, was it the golden age of Hollywood?
I would call it that, sure. Yeah.
Or is that what the
Or would
common?
that be silent films, and this would be the Silver Age? I don't
Oh,
know.
Silver Age.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, legend all the same. Casablanca, um, amongst others. I can't say I'm terribly familiar, but I know Casablanca and I had seen that. But yeah, there is interest. It's interesting. Lost media gets found all the time. Like you just found that Humphrey Bogart clip. So hopefully, for any of you sleuths out there, if there are any Star Trek Celebrity Deathmatch clips shot on a hard drive, let us have it. And I want to start to ask you now about your book, Spontania.
Ooh, nice. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So we got this published this year, looks like, and I want to know what was the jump like? What inspired the jump from your traditional claymation into drawn comic?
Wow. So going back a few decades, maybe more than a few decades, I've always been interested in comics. Comics were probably what's set me on a road for visual storytelling, being interested in animation, being interested in film. So it's something I always wanted to do. And then the last, I'm going to say 5, 6 years, how long can you work on one thing creatively before you're ready for something else? So after the second TV series I produced was completed,
Which was,
you know, I'm not even sure what they're calling it now. I did it for Canadian television. They keep changing the names. I'm not even sure if it's out there, but if you went on, I'm gonna say Vimeo, I think you could find a clip.
okay.
And you put in my name, there's some animation there. You'll see the show that I produced. And since then, I've been trying to, well, for the next 5, 6 years, I was trying to get another TV series off the ground, either live action or animation. And part of the process, since almost everything I work on is either science fiction or fantasy, you know, there's a lot of creativity that goes into it. Character designs, story concepts, creating the whole world building, which is the expression they use now in video games, world building. So what we used to do when we were trying to create a new world is we would create what we call maquettes. So that's a maquette. It's a three-dimensional character. She got a little backpack, which is kind of cool because she goes to high
Nice.
school. And so we would create these maquettes, and these are not hard. These are hard. They're not soft. They're not animatable. They're for the purpose of presentations. So back then, up till about, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, we used to actually, fly to LA and do presentations. We'd go to Disney, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, go Warner Brothers. We go to a bunch of different places, and we go in with our illustrations. And I'd go there with a writing team and a producer team, and they'd have some like a sample script and stuff like this. And we'd actually do like what we call a horse and pony show, where you get up and you talk about it and you'd be real excited. This is really cool idea. Well, one of the things I found very early on was, rather than go in there with paper, go in there with a three-dimensional character like that, and
Wow.
take it and put it right down on the table in front of them so they can pick it up and go, oh, this is just, what's this made of? And they just get really into it. But it allows people who are, I don't want to say producers are non-creative, but some producers are very technically minded. Some are very, nut and bolts. What's it going to cost? How long is it going to take? And some want to aspire to be, to get their creative juices going. But when you put something down like this in front of them, they can completely visualize it. They
Mm.
see it. There it is. There's the characters. And I'll go in there with like 5 or 10 of these puppets, and I put them out on the table, and it got everybody interested. So even if the show wasn't picked up, they would always remember me. There's like, oh, that's the guy. He did work on Celebrity Deathmatch. He came in here with all his puppets, and they remember this. I used to have friends, they used to do like Muppet type shows. So they had hand puppets, and they used to make a puppet or two, and they'd go in to a meeting, and then in the middle of the meeting, they would slink down, go under the table. A puppet would come up, and they put on a show.
Oh,
And when
whoa.
I heard that, I mean, this goes back, I'm going back 30 something years now. This is when I was first getting into the business, probably close to 40 years ago. And I was like, dude, that's brilliant. He goes, everybody loved it. At first, they think you're a little crazy, but he used to go in there, him and his wife, and they'd have a shopping bag or something, and they would just disappear under the table. And you hear them, everybody going like, what are you doing? And suddenly a puppet would come up, another puppet would come up, and they'd act out a scene. And it was like, and that's how he goes. He sold like 3 shows that way. It was
Whoa.
like, wow. And I heard that, so it stayed in my mind. And so after Celebrity Deathmatch, I did another TV series. It's the Canadian project. Then we were pitching a lot of projects, and I was starting to get momentum again. And I put together a short film called The Halloween Prankster. So I stayed in touch with Mark Hamill, who worked on the last show with us. And he did some voiceover for me, and he co-produced it. And then we got done with that, and COVID hit. So here I was left with like all this stuff, and no party to go to. So what I found out was, I think because of the way COVID was, or just the nature of business itself, it's like, hey, if we could teach classes, elementary, high school, even college classes like this, which we did, and it sucked. But if we could do that, you could pitch a show this way too.
Mm.
And I thought, yeah, but if I can't get this in front of you, it's just not going to be that impressive.
Um,
So I was still producing what we call a Bible. So it would have character designs, everything about the character, the bio, my bio, the people working on it. You'd map out the story arcs, all the complexity of the characters. And I looked at this pile of stuff, and I was like, it's still not going to do it. But if I took it and I turned it into this,
there you go.
I can physically mail it to them, or just JPEG and whatever, you send it PDF. They could look at it, they can scan it as you're talking about it. And, again, it's horse and pony show. It's everything all over again. You could just, I mean, what's better than this, man? Half the time they would say, yeah, send us the PDF, but mail us a copy too. Like
Mhm.
everybody wants to hold this in their hand, you
Right.
know. Do you remember, like, I'm gonna go back now, I think about 7, 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, when everybody was buying a Kindle and a
Oh,
Nook,
yes.
and the sales of books just like went off a cliff. It was just like boom. And everybody, I know a lot of authors, and they were like, that's it, books are dead. No one's reading books ever again. And I went, that doesn't sound right. So I went into Barnes and Noble, and they were selling, what do they sell? The Nook, that's their
The
thing.
Nook, yeah.
And the first thing that really occurred to me was I thought, well, it's about the size of the book, right? And I went, oh, okay, this is good. And then when I picked it up, I was like, this thing weighs like 8 pounds. I don't want to hold this. I want to turn pages. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, inspect
So,
them. Also, to let you know, we have 2.5 minutes, but
oh, okay.
no problem. I'm sorry. It's the amount of time that they give us to record uh,
Okay.
Zoom. But I wanted to ask you about Spontaneous design. What inspired that? The suit, that is.
Okay, the costume, the suit. Yeah, so um I've been looking at comic books my whole life, and part of the idea was I wanted something that has not been seen.
Ah,
So I came up with the DNA logo design on her costume. It's on front and back.
yeah, the double helix.
Yes, the double helix. And the idea of covering her entire body because the suit is bulletproof. And it doesn't mean she doesn't get hurt. It just means it's bulletproof. And that was the beginning of the idea. My favorite colors, blue, orange, white. Um, the visor, give it some tech updates. And that's really, the most of it. And that the main character is a gymnast. So, it had to be skin tight so she has a lot of mobility and she could do a lot of these things. So that's where that came from.
Sweet. And I love the integration of modern tech and modern ideas like the school shooter plot and how he became a government uh, prop and then conspiracies would form around it. I appreciated that modern integration. And geez. But what are some other issues you'd like to tackle and where can people pick this book up?
Okay, let's get the second one last. Second one first. It's Amazon. You can find it on Amazon, or you can connect to me on my website, which is Comic Book Kid Pub, Pub at gmail.com or .com, Comic Book Kid Pub.com. And I could autograph it, send it to you. You could buy it on Amazon. My next show is in Collingswood, New Jersey at the book festival. That's in October, or out here on Long Island at Hot Flips Collectibles. That's the weekend of the 5th and the 6th of October. I know we're running out of time. Did that help you out?
It did, very much so. Spontanea. Thank you for watching. Consider supporting Jazzy Mag at the links down below. Go to jazzymag.net for more original comics and content. Check out the other interviews on the channel, and have a jazzy day.